Good morning, friends. This is the Pajama Scholar, Hank McGurk, coming to you with Ambient Glow Radio, something akin to Fireside Chat, where today we'll be exploring a reading from an article called By Their Bootstraps from Reader's Digest, March of 1938. Now here in the studio, we're always filled with the sounds of life. Hopefully you won't be too offended by the parakeets as they begin to sing. In a few more moments, we'll have a lovely sunrise here in the south. So to all my friends in Canada, Germany, parts beyond, I hope you enjoy the show. Now, this is all about self-help during the Great Depression, and we're looking to the past to help us determine what the future may look like. These are uncertain times. I suppose most times in life are uncertain. The possibilities are nearly endless, but that's another topic for another day. But today we're going to explore what Richmonders had done during the Great Depression, and that would be Richmond, Virginia, my hometown. How they worked around the difficulties of the Great Depression to fare better in that city than most others. Now I understand that conditions change throughout history, but man is virtually the same creature that it has always been. We don't evolve as quickly as things like dogs do, for example. We can breed dogs so quickly that they change, as evidenced by all these species that wouldn't survive ordinarily. Man interfering with the environment in such a way to create things that please us, not necessarily that work so well in the environment. But I digress. Now, the title of this article is called That Was in 1932. Jobs Were Scarce and Getting Scarcer. Self-Help During the Great Depression, 1932. Now this is the title of the line from the Richmond Reader. The actual article is By Their Bootstraps from Reader's Digest of March 1938. And years ago, Reader's Digest actually was a periodical of great importance and respect and repute. Everybody liked to read the Reader's Digest. It was very popular in America. The Great Depression of the 1930s brought unparalleled economic hardship to the United States, but Richmond fared better than most cities. The explanation, according to Virginia Stabney, was the stability of tobacco manufacture more than anything else, but also a well-balanced economy and federal assistance. The latter, among other contributions, left a legacy of such new public buildings as the Maggie L. Walker High School and the Virginia State Library. Dabney also gives credit to the initiative and enterprise of individual Richmonders, many of whom helped to organize and sustain a nationally praised self-help project, the Citizens Service Exchange. This unique program is described below in an article by Stanley High, 1895 to 1961, a contemporary journalist and later editor of Reader's Digest. The exchange, incidentally, lasted until 1945, when it was transformed into a Richmond branch of the goodwill industries. The Citizens Service Exchange in Richmond, Virginia, is a self-help project through which, at present, nearly 800 families are lifting themselves out of relief to self-support. What is happening in Richmond may be a wholly unorthodox chapter in the history of relief, but it is an exceedingly significant revelation of what takes place when the unemployed are given, instead of relief, an opportunity. The Citizens Service Exchange grew out of an improvised reading room for the unemployed, where men foregathered to kill time and, incidentally, to make it plain to those in charge what they wanted, more than amusement, was work. When one day the able men present were asked what they needed most, the unexpected answer was razor blades. We can't get a job unless we look halfway decent. An appeal thereupon was made for razor blades, and Richmond donated them by the thousands, with sharpeners. But the Richmond Council of Social Agencies began at once to look for a better answer. That was in 1932. Jobs were scarce and getting scarcer. The community fund, hard-pressed by a mounting relief load, had set $50 a month as the minimum relief income for a family of 5, and even that minimum, in many instances, was not available. It was therefore suggested that the unemployed work for each other. Inquiry was made to the success and methods of self-help projects in other communities, notably in Ohio and California. The reports received were encouraging, and the Council of Social Agencies presented a plan to a group of the unemployed. It was healthily endorsed. It was heartily endorsed. Thereupon, a board of sponsors and a board of directors, representing businesses and welfare interests and organized labor, were organized. A small initial cash outlay for equipment was secured from the community fund, and the experiment, with some misgivings, was undertaken. An abandoned warehouse was loaned rent-free for headquarters, and, with the approval and support of Richmond labor leaders, 50 unemployed carpenters, bricklayers, plumbers, and paper hangers went to work to recondition it. At this point, of course, the question of pay arose, and the simple economic procedure that is still followed was worked out. There are no dollars and cents transactions among the members of the exchange, but there is an initial investment, which the unemployed themselves suggested. At one of the earliest meetings between the representatives of the community fund and the spokesman for the unemployed, a painter arose and proposed that, since you people are all putting up your money, we will put up our work. That's all we've got to put up. Since that time, every new member invests an initiation fee of 40 hours, a week's work, when he enters the organization. He can withdraw this investment in commodities if he leaves. Thereafter, for every hour of work, the member, male or female, receives exchange currency, a little blue work certificate valued at approximately 25 cents, redeemable for such merchandise or services as may be available in the Citizens Service Exchange, to the value of 1 hour's labor. The exchange store sells exclusively to members, and those work certificates are the only currency that is honored. Prices are calculated in terms of work hours. Thus, a broom costs from 2 to 5 work certificates, A haircut, 1 certificate. A lunch, 1 certificate. A permanent wave, 20 certificates. A quarter of a cord of wood, 9 certificates. At the nearby Methodist Church, which many members attend, work certificates are put in the collection plate. Every week, the minister appears at the exchange with the previous Sunday's offering and redeems it for church bulletins at the print shop, or in terms of janitor work, upholstering and furniture repair. When the exchange was organized, it was determined that the 3 things most desperately needed by Richmond's unemployed were fuel, shelter, and clothing. Those 3 things, therefore, were accepted as the immediate objective. Clothing was first on the list. The Red Cross of Richmond issued a call to share what you have with those who have nothing. The city responded with 60 truckloads of salvageable clothes and shoes. Another call went out, this time for sewing machines. 23 were quickly delivered, and almost overnight, the exchange was a growing concern. Today, after 5 years, the salvaging and reconditioning of clothes is still one of its main major industries. Fuel and shelter, however, were less easily procurable. In regard to shelter, the aid of the police department was enlisted, and a survey was made of the city's unoccupied property. It was found that there were 3,050 flats and houses not in use, many of them in a bad state of repair. Thereupon, the real estate board came forward with a plan that resulted in an exchangement between the owners of many of these properties and the exchange. The owners agreed to provide the materials for the repairs. The exchange, up to 200 hours on any one house or flat, agreed to provide the labor. In return, the owners turned their property over to the exchange, rent-free for 6 months, to sublet to its members for 40 work certificates per month. On the problem of fuel, the newspapers lent their aid to a campaign for donations of standing timber. As a result, many good hundreds of acres of timberland were made available without charge, and old trucks were patched up for hauling. Ever since, the production of fuel has been a major exchange activity. In 1937, 464 cords of wood were delivered to the homes of exchange members. After so auspicious a beginning, it was clear that the work of the organization could not be limited to its 3 initial objectives. Among other things, something had to be done about food for the midday meal served at the exchange to the workers. My parakeets are really getting into it. Good morning, guys. Good morning. They love it when I talk. They love to talk. Toward the end of 1933, therefore, a request was made through the newspapers for 200 acres of unused land. More than 3,000 acres were offered. With equipment provided by the federal government and with a seed loan from the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, the farm and truck gardening projects got underway. Today, the exchange runs a farm for transients in cooperation with the Travelers Aid Society, where some 350 men are given board and lodging each month. These men are not listed as exchange members, and they pay for their work, and they pay by work on the farm. The food production from all sources in 1937 included not only a vast amount of foodstuffs for immediate consumption and canning, but also some 50,000 loaves of bread from the exchange bakery and an average of 2,600 midday meals per month from its dining room. In the last 5 years, a total of 120,000 scrip hours of food had been sold to its members. This enlargement of the work of the exchange has continued until it has become almost a self-sustaining community. Surplus products from the United States government, hides from cattle slaughtered in the drought, wool, etc., came to the exchange as donated raw material. The unused schoolhouse, which now serves as headquarters, contains barber shops and beauty parlors. A presentable appearance means much in building up morale. A chemical department, which tans donated hides into good leather for the shoe shop, and which turned out last year 2,091 bags of soap, a laundry which is serving 180 families per month, weaving, sewing, quilting, and shoe departments, and an exceedingly busy machine shop whose chief product is an inexpensive but exceedingly practical drum stove made of empty steel barrels donated by a Richmond manufacturer. But even with the exchange, a growing concern, the major interest of most of the men and women at work, there was still reemployment in the private industry. As a result, in addition to its other activities, the exchange has assumed a responsibility for training and reconditioning its members for jobs. In this, teachers, furnished by the Richmond School Board, aided. During the last 18 months, 280 young people have gone from daytime vocational classes into employment. For older men and women, many of whom had lost their skills, the problem was largely one of reconditioning. The industries at the exchange itself provided the best answer to that problem. The bakery, for example, is also a school where a number of men, guided by a veteran, are trained to be bakers. The 2 beauty shops have had little difficulty finding jobs for the graduates of their courses. When I visited the exchange, classes were being organized in hat making because a recent survey of Richmond's industries had revealed a shortage of experienced milliners. Within 3 months, 11 people, products of those classes, had found jobs in hat factories in the city. The records show that more than 700 people have been trained out of the exchange into private employment as printers, cobblers, painters, auto mechanics, truck drivers, barbers, beauty shop operators, domestics, telephone operators, filing clerks, broom and brush makers, and gardeners. The annual turnover from the members to private employment is about 40%. The annual turnover from the WPA has been shown in some surveys to be no higher than 2.5%. And this is a little bit of a historical set, the WPA being a separate government work program. Back to the article. Back of this achievement is the board of sponsors and the board of directors, but more important than either, perhaps, is Miss Amy A. Guy, the executive secretary. Miss Guy has not only believed in this project for the unemployed, she has believed in the unemployed. With few precedents to guide her and a considerable amount of skepticism to combat, she has developed an enterprise which began as a dubious experiment into an institution which is likely to endure in Richmond as long as unemployment continues to be a problem. I think it is quite likely that Miss Guy would say that the most significant contribution of the exchange has been in the maintenance and the building of morale, the discipline and habit of work, self-respect, and the desire to get ahead. Relief is a taboo word at the exchange, and the relief attitude is altogether missing. Members know that the things they make are needed, and the goods they carry home each night from the store are purchased with earned certificates. The members have their own participants' assembly. There, with the exchange directors excluded save on special invitation, they can discuss the problems of organization, settle matters of internal discipline, carry on welfare work for those of their number who are ill or otherwise in trouble, and when they have suggestions or complaints, present them formally to Mrs. Guy. In the entire 5 years of her direction of this enterprise, it has not been necessary to discharge more than 3 or 4 people from the membership. The several thousand people who have been members of the exchange during those 5 years have turned in a total of nearly 1 million work hours. The goods and services produced by that work investment have been socially useful. The relatively small sums invested by the federal government and the Richmond Community Fund for equipment and personnel have paid human dividends out of all proportion to the amounts involved. And these sums have not been a dole for men and women who believe that the world owes them a living. They are, rather, a modest stake for men and women who believe that what the world owes them is a chance. That is why the self-help agency, as it exists in Richmond, appears to be the least costly answer to the problem of the unemployed, and the one that is most authentically American. And that was by their Bootstraps, Reader's Digest, March 1938. Now, I hope you enjoyed this morning's presentation of Ambient Glow Radio by Hank McGurk. Later we'll be discussing the First Great Depression, and we'll be starting in 1890. And I think you'll find it very interesting how similar things were in history at that time to the way things are today. We can see so many different parallels, and we can also see many other outliers. And perhaps we'll discuss influencers, outliers, and analytical process by which we can use historical lines coupled with information about today's events to give us an idea or insight into future trends. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. It's 5:31 a.m. Sarasota. Take care. It's been Hank McGurk.